Welcome to the 14th video, boxing history match by match. And it's sort of all from the same era at the moment, and weight really, the heavyweight division, and it's Ron Lyle. Yeah, I've just put the book there, that's Candice Toft's book, really good book on him. And I'm going to go straight into Ron Lyle's career, which pretty much started from a dream when he was in prison. He had an altercation with another prisoner. He got stabbed, and when he was in prison, he had this dream he was going to fight Muhammad Ali for the title. Amazing athlete. Started up late in life, trained, obviously, when he was inside, he trained like a lunatic. But yeah, it makes you wonder how good they could have been if he started earlier. So, Ron Lyle was born on the 12th of February 1941. So Muhammad Ali was born in 1942. Bruce Lee was born in 1940. And here we have Ron David Lyle, or Ron Lyle, was born in 1941. He died on the 26th of November 2011. That would be a day before the actual birthday of Bruce Lee in 1940. The 27th of November, Bruce Lee was born. So that would be like 71 years since the birth of Bruce Lee. Obviously, he died at 33 on July the 20th, 1973. So I digress. Just like to put a few links in. Go straight to Ron Lyle's career. A bit of an amateur, short amateur career, then turned pro. So we go straight to his pro career. And Ron Lyle's first fight was a win over AJ Staples by TKO in the second round of a scheduled six on April the 23rd, 1971 at the Auditorium Arena at Denver in Colorado. Jack Dempsey country there. 1971 was the year when Muhammad Ali would start his trilogy with Joe Frazier. That was March the 8th, 1971. We go to Ron Lyle's second fight. He fights Art Miller and beats Art Miller by a KO in the fifth round for scheduled sixth on May the 22nd, 1971 at the Matthews Arena at Boston in Massachusetts. Marvin Hagler country. Marvin Hagler did once fight for something called the Massachusetts World Title and won it. But it was the only time it was ever mentioned in that fight. He was kept waiting for ages. Even the president of the country said, why isn't Hagler getting his shot? But the rest is history, obviously. So, obviously, we're back to the heavyweight here division with Ron Lyle. Ron Lyle's third fight, he fights Gary Bates and beats Gary Bates by a KO in the third round of the Schedule 4 on June the 19th, 1971 at Sahara Tahoe at State Line in Nevada. Then Ron Lyle wins his fourth fight against Edmund Stewart of Jamaica, I think, Jamaica, and wins by a second round TKO of a scheduled 6th on July the 16th, 1971 at Sunnyside Garden Arena at New York City in New York. Then we go to his fifth fight. He fights Leroy Caldwell. Hard fight for that time in his career. Leroy Caldwell was in with Lyle, Ernest Shavers, and George Foreman. So, we go to Ron Lyle's fifth fight. He beats Leroy Caldwell on unanimous decision over 5 rounds on July the 24th, 1971 at the Playboy Club at Lake Geneva in Wisconsin. Then we go to Ron Lyle's 6th fight. He beats Frank Niblett by a KO in the 9th round of a Schedule 10 on August 11th, 1971 at the Silver Slipper at Paradise in Nevada. Then Ron Lyle in his 7th fight, he beats Eddie Land by a TKO in the 7th round of a Schedule 10 on September the 1st, 1971 at the Silver Slipper at Paradise in Nevada. September the 1st, 1923 was the birth of Rocky Marciano. He died in the day before that on the 31st of August 1969. So nearly 2 years to the day to this fight. 1969 was the year when Neil Armstrong put the first step on the moon, going up with Michael Connolly and Buzz Aldrin. But we're back to the 70s here. That was September the 1st, 1971 here. So, Ron Lyle in his 8th fight beats Manuel Ramos from Mexico on a unanimous decision over 10 rounds on the 9th of October 1971 at the Auditorium Arena at Denver in Colorado. Then Ron Lyle in his 9th fight beats Joe E. Lewis on a KO in the 3rd round of a Schedule 10 on November the 10th, 1971 at the Silver Slipper at Paradise in Nevada. Then Ron Lyle in his 10th fight fights Jack O'Halloran, the actor and Superman also. Ron Lyle beats Jack O'Halloran, the baddie in Superman, on a 4 rounds KO of Schedule 10 on the 26th of August 1971. Yeah, so that was his 10th fight against Jack O'Halloran on the 26th of November 1971, which will be the date of his death, 26th of November 2011. So do my maths. So I do my maths rightly. This is 1971 when he fights Jack O'Halloran, and he died in 2011. So it would be literally 40 years to the date of this match that Ron Lyle would die. At 70 years old. He was 70 years old. So we go to Ron Lyle's 11th fight. He beats Bill Drover from Canada on a 2-round KO of a Schedule 10 on December the 18th, 1971 at the Auditorium Arena at Denver in Colorado. And Ron Lyle in his 12th fight beats Chuck Leslie on a 2-round TKO of a Schedule 10 on January 22nd, 1972 at the Auditorium Arena at Denver in Colorado. 1972 was the same year that the Munich Summer Olympics were held, and the same year that the Winter Olympics were held in Japan in Sapporo. The Summer Olympics would host Dan Gable. I think Sugar Ray Seals was in that, and the boxing as well. You had Tifilio Stevenson win his first of 3 gold medals in the heavyweight division, the Cuban. And you had Kwarlugin Bayanmonk, a 10-time Mongolian-style wrestling champ, win silver in the freestyle wrestling. You had also Prefontaine, the runner, get left out of the medals. Can't think what distance that was. And Yeah, so staying with 1972, he beats Chuck Leslie. Then here's the man who's everyone's record then. In Ron Lyle's 13th fight, he fights George Scrap Iron Johnson. You don't get a name like that without being hard. And Ron Lyle beats George Scrap Iron Johnson on a third round KO of a Schedule 10 on May the 25th, 1972 at the Coliseum at Denver in Colorado. So, Ron Lyle's 14th fight, he fights Mel Turnbow and wins by a TKO in the fourth round on May the 10th, 1972 at Las Vegas in Nevada. So, Ron Lyle's 15th fight, he fights Mike Boswell and beats Mike Boswell in his 15th fight by a TKO in the 7th round of a Schedule 10 on May the 25th, 1972 at the Civic Auditorium at Omaha in Nebraska. Then, in Ron Lyle's 16th fight, he fights the Venezuelan Vincent Rondon. I swear he's Venezuelan. Yeah, Venezuelan he was. Quite a light heavy, I think, like Gregorio Peralta. So, 16th fight, Ron Lyle beats Vincent Rondon by a TKO in the second round of a Schedule 10 on July the 11th, 1972 at the Mile High Club at Denver in Colorado. July 11th was the birthday of Leon Spinks in the 50s, early 50s, either 53 or 1950. I think off the top of my head. Len Harvey was born on the 11th of July also, a day before you had Jake LaMotta was born. Obviously not this time, but that was their birthdays on the 11th. He lived into his 90s, Jake LaMotta, with all his faculties after all them wars. And you had Mike the Bounty Hunter, who was one of the most coveted sparring partners of Mike Tyson. And had a son who's boxing now in the heavyweight division and fought in the cruiserweight, fought Usyk in the cruiserweight division. So I digress here. So let's get back to Ron Lyle. In his 17th fight, he fights Buster Mathis, big fast-handed man. In his 17th fight, Ron Lyle beats Buster Mathis by a KO in the second round of a Schedule 10 on September the 29th, 1972 at the Coliseum at Denver in Colorado. 29th of September 1790. Daniel Mendoza fought Richard Humphreys, I think for the third time. Yes, third time. He was in court after, because it was illegal then, it was bare knuckle. And the day after this, the 30th of September 1974, so 2 years to the day near enough, after this, Muhammad Ali beats George Foreman in Kenasha Zayat on the 30th of October 1974, same year that West Germany won the World Cup in Germany, beating Holland 2-1. So yeah, that was all happening around then. So Buster Mathis also had fast hands, but he was a big guy but a bit unmotivated, and he trained a very short time with Costamato. Obviously it wasn't the right fit for them both, and he beat Joe Frazier in the amateurs, qualifying for the 1968 Mexico Olympics, but hurt his hand, and the man he beat, Joe Frazier, stepped in and won gold in 1968. So Ron Lyle's 18th fight, he beats Brazilian Luis Faustino Pires, a Brazilian, by a 3-round KO over Schedule 10 on the 28th of October 1972 at the Coliseum at Denver in Colorado. The 27th of October 1995, Scott Welsh got his revenge over James Oyabola in Brighton, stopping him winning the Intercontinental, British and Commonwealth titles. He lost in 1994 to James Oyabola, the 6th of May 1994, the same year that George Foreman won the heavyweight title, being the oldest man, nearly 46, beating Michael Moorer. That was on Bonfire Night, November the 5th, 1994. So I digressed there. I'd like to get little links going. So, Ron Lyle's 19th fight, he fights Larry Middleton and beats Larry Middleton by a KO in the 3rd round on December the 9th, 1972 at the Coliseum at Denver in Colorado. And Larry Middleton would fight Ken Norton and Joe Bugner. And when Larry Middleton fought Ken Norton, it was called the Battle of the Jawbreakers. He lost to Norton because Larry Middleton broke Joe Bugner's jaw, and Ken Norton, in the first of the trilogy with Muhammad Ali, and the only one he won against Ali officially, he broke Ali's jaw in that. So yeah, that was called the Battle of Jawbreakers. But Larry Middleton was beaten in Lyle's 19th fight by KO in the 3rd round. So Ron Lyle's 20th fight, he fights Jerry Quarry and loses to Jerry Quarry in his 20th fight by unanimous decision over 12 rounds. On February 9th, 1973 at Madison Square Garden at New York City in New York. Here's another man, a lot of people's records there. Tough guy. So, 21st match. Ron Lyle beats Bob Stallings on unanimous decision over 10 rounds on April the 14th, 1973 at the Harry Adams Fieldhouse at Missoula in Montana. And again, a place called Shelby, Montana was the host, little town in Montana. Shelby, Montana was the host of the 1923 match between Jack Dempsey and Tommy Gibbons. It actually bled the town of Shelby dry, with a makeshift stadium costing the town a lot. Went the distance. Jack Dempsey won over 15 rounds. Really boring fight, really. And yeah, there's a little link there. April the 14th, 1973. Ron Lyle beats Bob Stallings. Say a day out on April the 13th, 2012, you had Bellator 65. So, obviously, 42 years nearly, apart from one day later. But I'd just like to make these links. So, Ron Lyle's 22nd fight, he fights Gregorio Peralta, the tough Argentinian who extended George Foreman twice, losing a 10-round KO to him, Schedule 15, but the first time taking George the distance. I think it was over 10 rounds. But in Ron Lyle's 22nd fight, he gets a unanimous decision over Gregorio Peralta over 10 rounds on May the 12th, 1973 at the Coliseum at Denver in Colorado. And 1973 was the year that Bruce Lee died, on the 20th of July of that year, just after this. Yes, and again, little link in history, 20th of July 1944. You had that supposed overthrow of Hitler with Rommel. Whether that happened or not, I don't know. It's a bit folklore-y, but it might have happened. You hear both sides. And then 20th of July 1969, you had Neil Armstrong put his foot on the moon, going up with Michael Connolly and Buzz Aldrin. So, 1973 was the year that Bruce Lee died, and also the year when Ron Lyle beat Gregorio Peralta, the Argentinian. Good testing fight that for him. And then Ron Lyle in his 23rd fight beats Wendell Newton on a split decision over 10 rounds on June the 11th, 1973 at the Spectrum at Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. And in Ron Lyle's 24th fight, he beats Lou Bailey on a unanimous decision over 10 rounds on July the 3rd, 1973 at the State Fairgrounds International Building at Oklahoma City in Oklahoma. You did have a David Bailey kicking around then. A fought Chavallo. Also, there was a Dave Bailey who fought Amir Khan in his first match. His first pro match. Didn't last long. Yeah, I fought Dave Bailey in the kickboxing world many years before that. I digress. So we go back to Ron Lyle's 25th fight. He fights Jose Luis Garcia, who had a win over Foreman, a stoppage win, but lost the rematch later on in Norton's career. So in Lyle's 25th fight, he gets a KO over Jose Luis Garcia in the third round by 3-round KO over Schedule 10 on October the 4th, 1973 at Denver in Colorado. Then 26th fight, Ron Lyle beats Belgian Muhammad Ali opponent Jurgen Blin by a TKO in the second round of the Schedule 10 on October the 4th, 1973 at Denver in Colorado. Then he fights Larry Middleton again, beats him. In his 27th fight, Ron Lyle beats Larry Middleton again by unanimous decision over 10 rounds on the 31st of October 1973 at the Civic Center at Baltimore in Maryland, Sugar Ray Leonard country. And pretty much a year after this, minus 1 day, on the 30th of October 1974, Muhammad Ali would beat George Foreman in Kenosha, Zaire. The fight being postponed for 3 weeks. Foreman had some cut in training. President Mobutu, who runs Zaire, wouldn't let him out the country. Ali beat him in the 8th round. Still, all the way through his career, he never got stopped again. George Foreman, well into his 40s, he still never got stopped. Ali being the only man to do it in his prime, pretty much. And yeah, that'd be a year later exactly to this Larry Middleton fight. So he has 2 Argentinians on the trot now. So Ron Lyle in his 28th fight fights Gregorio Peralta again. Gets a draw this time on points over 10 rounds on November the 17th, 1973 at Frankfurt in Germany. Like I say, Peralta extended George Foreman to 10 rounds. And the second of their fight, lost, getting stopped in the 10th round. Think of a Schedule 15. And he took him the distance in the first fight, but lost to George Foreman both times. So another Argentinian now. In Ron Lyle's 29th fight, he gets a win over Oscar Bonavena, the Argentinian, a unanimous 12-round decision on March the 19th, 1974 at the Coliseum at Denver in Colorado. 1974 was the same year that Germany won the World Soccer Cup in Germany, beating Holland 2-1 in the final. And Holland would go on to lose the second of the 3 times they've got into the finals of the World Soccer Cup. In 1978, to the home side again, Argentina, losing 3-1 this time. Also, Holland would lose well later in 2014 to West Germany. 2000, that was... they would lose again, the third and last time to this date. Holland would lose in 2010 to Spain in South Africa, when it's held in South Africa. After extra time, they lost 1-0 to Spain. First time Spain won the World Soccer Cup then in 2010. But I digressed massively with dates and sports. 1974 was also the year that Muhammad Ali would fight Joe Frazier for the second time and get his first win of 2 over him on the 28th of January 1974. So, Ron Lyle in his 30th fight gets a win over Jimmy Ellis on a unanimous decision over 12 rounds on the 16th of July 1974 at Denver in Colorado. And Ron Lyle in his 31st fight beats Boone Kirkman on an 8-round TKO of a Schedule 10 on September the 17th, 1974 at the Center Coliseum at Seattle in Washington. So, Ron Lyle in his 32nd fight gets a win over Al Jones by a TKO in the 5th round of a Schedule 10 on December the 13th, 1974 at the Municipal Auditorium at New Orleans in Louisiana. Then Ron Lyle in his 33rd fight loses to Jimmy Young on a unanimous decision over 10 rounds on February 11th, 1975 at the International Center Arena at Honolulu in Hawaii. Yes, so 1975 was the year of the Thriller Manila. On October the 1st, 1975, and the only time Ali would stop Joe Frazier in the last of their trilogy, winning 2-1. Eddie Futch not letting Joe Frazier come out. With the famous words, "No one's going to forget what you done here, son," when his other eye was closing up. And Joe Frazier was actually blind in the other eye, even in the amateurs, I think, from what I hear. So Eddie Futch knew to pull him out. Eddie Futch had been involved in a few deaths as well. So he was, obviously he did massively the right thing. Overruled Frazier's protest to carry on and do the last round. Muhammad Ali said it was the closest to death, that fight, in his mind. Never were the same, really, both fighters after. They wasn't the same before, but they definitely weren't anything of them old selves after. So, we come to Ron Lyle's 34th fight. His 34th fight, Muhammad Ali wins by TKO, that dream come true for Lyle, in the 11th round of the scheduled 15. I think he might have been ahead on points, might have been, it's tough to say. And that was on May the 16th, 1975, at the Las Vegas Convention Center at Winchester in Nevada. And that was for the WBA, WBC and Ring Lineal heavyweight titles. So, Ron Lyle in his 35th fight beats Ernie Shavers by a TKO in the 6th round of a scheduled 12 on September 13th, 1965 at the Coliseum at Denver in Colorado. Now this, in his 36th fight, he fights in a match that, to me, epitomises the word slugfest. It had everything. It was 4 rounds, I think. But, yeah, it was. Well, it was 5 rounds. Yeah, so George Foreman, he fights George Foreman, and it had everything. It had a short round, everything in this. Yeah, but anyway, so I think it was 2 minutes and something instead of 3 minutes. So Lyle's 36th fight, George Foreman, he loses to George Foreman by a 5-round KO, putting Foreman down. And he loses by a 5-round KO to Foreman, a scheduled 12 on January 24th, 1976 at Caesars Palace at Paradise in Nevada for the vacant NABF North American Federation heavyweight title. 1976 was the year of the Montreal Summer Olympics, where Sugar Ray Leonard would win gold, beating Aldama in the final of the lightweight division, and also you had the Spinks brothers winning golds, that's 3, Leo Randolph winning gold, and you can't forget Howard Davis winning gold, 5 golds. Howard Davis got the Val Barker Trophy for the best boxer. It was quite something with Sugar Ray Leonard in the games. And you had Mooney, I can't think of his first name, Mooney, he got a silver, I think. And John Tate, the heavyweight, not Frank Tate, he would win gold in 1984 in their massive take-home of gold medals, the middleweight fighter. But John Tate, the heavyweight, would get bronze in the 1976 Montreal Olympics in Canada, 1976. And you also had that same year, on June the 1st, Muhammad Ali got in a ring in his suit with Gorilla Monsoon. They had a worked sort of play between them. Ali danced around. I swear he took off his shoes and gave him to Butch Lewis. I'm not so sure on that. And then obviously a work, he gets caught in an aeroplane spin by Gorilla Monsoon. He was hamming up his match, his upcoming match, in a mixed rules match, really, on June the 26th of this year, 1976. Ali would engage in a weirdly ruled match. It wasn't a work, against Antonio Nuki, who could really do the business, with Jean LaBelle, the referee. And Anuki was only allowed to kick on the ground and not wrestle or anything. Ali had gloves and boxing boots, and Anuki didn't. And so he just frog crawled on his back and kicked Ali's legs for 15 rounds. The weirdest match. Anuki crawled along the floor. Ali even put a punt in with the boxing boots at one time. It was the weirdest match. Weird rule set, and really damaged his legs. He had to go to hospital after it. He took so many kicks with Anuki's boots on. Another fight where you saw Ali fade away even more. He fought Norton in the last of their trilogies in September of 1976 and won it. But like I say, his legs weren't the same. But Norton come to see him in hospital after the Anuki drawn match over 15 rounds. It wasn't a boxing match. It was it's pretty much a mixed rules match. So it was obviously not on his record. The same night as that, you had Chuck Wepner, Shea Stadium, with Andre the Giant. I think it was meant to be a work. Again, but it didn't. It got a bit fruity. Chuck Wepner started throwing a few rabbit punches, and that's what Rocky III was based on, with Hulk Hogan. So 1976 was also the year of that slugfest with George Foreman and Ron Lyle. So massively digressed. Ron Lyle's 37th fight, he gets a win over Kevin Isaac by a TKO in the 7th round of a Schedule 10 on September 11th, 1976 at the Memorial Auditorium at Utica in New York. Then he takes another loss for the second time. In Ron Lyle's 38th fight, he loses again to Jimmy Young by unanimous decision again. Over 12 rounds on November the 6th, 1976 at the Civic Auditorium at San Francisco in California. Now, exactly to the day, 20 years after this, you had the craziest night I've ever seen in boxing, next to George Foreman, winning the title a year later nearly, on Bonfire Night, November the 5th, 1994. But on the 6th, the day after Bonfire Day, the 6th of November 1993, you saw the hang glider man come in the ring and stop the match for a roll when it was Bo and Evander Holyfield 2. So exactly 20 years after the date of Jimmy Young beating Ron Lyle for the second time. So, digressing here. So, Ron Lyle's 36th fight, he fights Joe Bugner and wins a split decision over 12 rounds. Underrated Joe Bugner. And this was March the 20th, 1977 at Caesar's Palace at Paradise in Nevada. 1977 was the same year the Voyager rockets went up. They're still going now, sending signals back. Apparently going to stop in 2025 apparently. Yeah, billions of miles out, 3-4 billion miles out they are, still sending signals back. But that went up in 1977. Looking at Pluto, all sorts on the edge of our solar system. So I will go to the next match. Ron Lyle's 40th match, he gets a majority decision win over Stan Ward over 10 rounds on September the 14th, 1977 at Caesar's Palace at Paradise in Nevada. Then Ron Lyle's 41st match, he beats Horace Robinson by retirement in the 8th round of a Schedule 10 on June the 3rd, 1978 at the Auditorium Arena at Denver in Colorado, the same year that Muhammad Ali would fight Leon Spinks twice. He fought Leon Spinks on February the 15th of 1978. So a bit before this. And we get his revenge after losing that match. And he had about 8 matches, Leon Spinks, winning the Olympics in 76. He fought him again on the 15th of September and got his win, Ali, and become the first man to win the heavyweight title 3 times, beating Leon Spinks. This year, it was the same year, 1978, as Argentina won the World Soccer Cup in Argentina, beating Holland 3-1 in the final on their home ground. So same year that Ron Lyle in his 41st fight beats Horace Robinson by retirement in the 8th round of a Schedule 10 on June the 3rd, 1978 at the Auditorium Arena at Denver in Colorado. June the 3rd was the exactly same date that Muhammad Ali died in 2016. So that would be 38, yeah, so that would be 38 years to the date of this match. Muhammad Ali, the great Muhammad Ali, would pass. So we go to Ron Lyle's 42nd fight, Ron Lyle in his 42nd fight beats Philly Mallett on a TKO in the 8th round of a Schedule 10 on March the 6th, 1979 at San Diego Stadium at San Diego in California. 1979 was the same year the Cruiserweight division was created. Then Ron Lyle's 43rd fight, he beats Scott Ledoux on a split decision over 10 rounds on May the 12th, 1979 at Caesars Palace at Las Vegas in Nevada. Now, Scott Ledoux was involved in a dubious tournament with Don King, I remember. So, later on that was, I think, in the 70s, late 70s, I think. So, Ron Lyle in his 44th fight loses to Lynn Ball by TKO in the second round of a Schedule 10 on December the 12th, 1979 at the Celebrity Theatre at Phoenix in Arizona. Then Ron Lyle fights to later on be a great referee, Al Newman. In his 45th fight, he beats the soon-to-be a great referee later on, Al Newman, by a TKO in the 10th round of a Schedule 10 on June the 19th, 1980 at the University of Puget Sound Fieldhouse at Tacoma in Washington. 1980 was the year of the Moscow Olympics, which Tifilio Stevenson of Cuba got his last gold medal because the second Los Angeles Olympics in 1984, the first one being in 1932, 1984 they boycotted with the Russians. But this 1980 Olympics in Moscow, the Americans boycotted. And that was the same year as this Al Newman fight, when he wins by TKO in the 10th round. Also, you had the Summer Olympics. In a weird way, they were in USA, Lake Placid, even though they boycotted the Summer Olympics. So, Ron Lyle's 46th fight, he beats George O'Mara on a 10-round KO in the 10th round on August the 23rd, 1980 at the Forum at Inglewood in California. Then Ron Lyle in his 47th fight would lose to American-Irishman Jerry Cooney on a 1-round KO of Schedule 10 on the 24th of October 1980 at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum at Hempstead in New York. Then Ron Lyle's 48th fight, he wins on a 4-round KO over Schedule 10 on April the 6th, 1995. So this is where quite a few of these guys got caught with the George Foreman comeback thing. Jerry Corey did, Shavers did, and also Ron Lyle. But this was 1995. And yes, so Ron Lyle's 48th fight, he makes a comeback here and gets a win over Bruce Johnson. Well into his 40s there, a 4-round KO at the Peels Palace, Erlanger in Kentucky. And what I remember from the book, he was sort of like, they were sort of nowhere as big places he was fighting. So Ron Lyle in his 49th fight beats Tim Pollard by a TKO in the second round on May the 12th, 1995 at the Peels Palace at Erlanger in Kentucky, Muhammad Ali country, and Jerry Page, Greg Page, should I say, not Jerry Page. He was the Olympian I'm getting muddled up with there in 1984. And also you had Marvin Hart and Jimmy Ellis, and Muhammad Ali come from that area, Louisville, Kentucky. But 1995 was the year also, a year after that Brazil won the World Soccer Cup in USA, beating Italy 3-2 on penalties after a 0-0 extra time score. So we go to the penultimate fight of his career against Ed Strickland, well into his 40s now, and it's his 50th fight. Ron Lyle beats Ed Strickland by a 2-round KO on June 9th, 1995 at the Erlanger in Kentucky. And then last fight, 51st fight, Ron Lyle beats Dave Slaughter by a 2-round TKO, scheduled 10 on August the 18th, 1995 at the Regency Hotel at Denver in Colorado. So, I mean, 1995, so you think 1995 onwards, he would have been 50. God, he was into his 50s. I know he's off it was late 40s, yeah. So he was born on February the 12th, 1941. So, yeah, he was 50, 53, 54 there. Yeah, so 54 at the end of it. Yeah, so quite a career. And he finished with 4 wins at least. So that's Ron Lyle. The end of Ron Lyle's career. Bang.